Welcome to Creative Conversations with Center Resource. Today we're talking about the art of storytelling.
Hey everyone, this is Brett, Center Resource. I think we're going to go around and each give our own individual perspective on this, and so I'll jump in first. So yeah, for me, storytelling through music and storytelling through video they're two totally different methods and ways to do it. For music, it's almost like I'm uncovering the story. I feel like with video, it's like the story is fully formed, and then it's, about pairing images and music to fit with it. But with music, I'll pick a metaphor and then I'll sort of follow it in all these different directions until it lands somewhere or ends somewhere that's satisfying personally. So it becomes more about uncovering the story rather than creating it, I guess.
I've noticed that as a songwriter and storyteller versus creating the videos that we're doing here, that there's an intention. We piece it together, we write the content, and it's very well mapped out, although the end result isn't always the beginning vision, but it's close. Whereas with a song, if I'm writing a song or writing a story, it's based off of my imagination and where my imagination takes me. That could be anywhere. Yeah. With this mind, anywhere.
We could all tell a story if we wanted to, of like something that has happened to us.
Let's just pick a subject. Frogs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I actually have a good one about a frog.
Go.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny. I was in high school and we were learning pointillism and of course, I was in high school and I had all these crazy ideas, and my picture was actually a picture I took of my chihuahua who was playing with a toad outside, and so I decided, I want to paint this, and I painted the dog in blue dots, and I actually ended up after the art show getting someone that wanted to buy my picture of my blue dog and the frog. And so that was the first time I ever sold a piece of art, which was kind of cool. And actually, it was funny too because my art teacher didn't like it at all. She didn't really want to put it in there. Art is subjective. You don't have to like it. Someone else liked it apparently enough to buy it.
Yeah.
So.
My creative process as an Illustrator is actually really similar to how we put together videos here. I have to have everything mapped out before I start working, whether it's a story that someone else is telling and I'm illustrating their story, or whether it's a story that I came up with on my own. Before I even start drawing anything, I write down notes about the storyline and what I want to get out of the viewer and key things that I want to be in the image, and then I start drawing little tiny thumbnail sketches of how I kind of want to set up the composition, and I do like dozens and dozens of those. Okay, like maybe these will work, and I'll do bigger sketches of those. I kind of know exactly what I want before I start anything, which is kind of similar to how we're making videos here. That's the opposite of what you guys are saying about making music.
That's funny because when I draw things, I do it completely opposite than you. I usually kind of just jump in with a general idea of what I want and then kind of figure out a vision in my head of what I want it to be like, but most of the time I can't really get that the first few tries. Probably would help if I did map it out more, but it's just, I guess it's never really how I worked. I kind of just like to come up with things on the fly, I guess, and if they work, they work, and if they don't, then I'll try again.
Yeah, it's like one is about the product and the other way is about the process.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I do have a good frog story.
Everyone has a good frog story.
Yeah, so I actually went, like a couple years ago, I went and backpacked around Puerto Rico, and I went to, Puerto Rico's known for these tree frogs called the coqui, and so that's like kind of like a onomatopoeic phrase for how they sound. They go coqui, coqui.
Oh, okay.
So we camped in the rainforest, and they come out at night too, and there was literally millions of frogs. Talk really loud, like to be able to talk to each other. So then we were trying to sleep, like it was crazy. It was like, and I had the craziest dreams that night. Like I don't know if it was the frogs or like what was going on, but Yeah, that was really wild.
Wow.
And it was like this just really loud, like ominous drone. Like you couldn't pick one frog out from any other. It was just like,
The crowd of frogs.
yeah, it was crazy.
I know when I wrote the Nana story, which is one of my favorite stories, that was such a personal and an emotional journey for me because I loved my Nana dearly, but also I really wanted to capture the essence of a Southern woman. Creating that story was personal history, it was family, heritage, and I loved the story. I don't even care if anyone else ever listens to it. I like listening to it myself.
Well, I like listening to it, I think, just because I have so many connections to it too. It's very similar to the way I grew up with my grandma, both of my grandmothers and my great grandma. So
I think this is the goal of any story too. Yeah,
just connect with
for people to be able to connect to it. Yeah.
Even though the story was about my Southern grandmother, and the full intention of the story was the Southern way of life, a Southern woman from days of old, and the love of my grandmother and our lifestyle, when I had shared the story with some elderly women up in Vermont, one of the women said to me, "I know this is your story about your grandmother and a Southern woman, but I want to tell you this is my story as well. I am that grandmother to my grandchildren." So that was nice because it transcended the storyline and became sort of this ever-present story. That was really a nice moment.
Yeah, that's something we were talking about the other day, about how a lot of different stories throughout different cultures, independent of each other, they rely on the same like tropes or the same universal characters or plot lines, and I think that's what makes a story good, is when it touches that universal aspect of it where anybody can relate to it.
Yeah, I think that's like if I like read a book or watch a movie and there's some aspect of the story that I can relate to, even if it's not direct, then that's gonna make me like that story more. Like you were saying about the woman who heard the song, and even though it was about your Nana, it was about her, like she felt like it was about her. And I think that's what makes a story great, is if you write something that's personal to you, but somebody else can hear it or read it and find themselves in that story. That's what's gonna make people like go back to it and listen to it again or read it again, is because they're gonna find something personal in what you find personal. And it's kind of a way to connect to people without a physical connection.
I mean, that's kind of what we as visual artists do too. I mean, we try to, especially in illustration, kind of convey the same feelings, even if it's like an atmosphere or a scene, or there's kind of something like moments that everyone's had in their lives, and I think we just try to connect with other people through those same moments visually too.
My dog used to catch frogs all the time, but he was like really like sneaky about it. So like, cause like I like my backyard even notice is a swamp, and I'd just be like walking him down the street, and I would look down, and like there would be legs sticking out of his mouth, like just like legs and like arms just like wiggling around. I'd be like, oh my god, like what are you doing? And like he wouldn't eat them. He would just like catch them and like carry them around in his mouth. And like just like limbs just like sticking out. He was really good at it. He was really sneaky. He was like an expert frog catcher. Yeah.
For me, the process of telling the story, if I was going to talk about doing it through video, it's usually kind of like I was saying, that I have the ending and the message that we're trying to convey is already been developed. And that just consists of almost interpreting the story, where it's, we pick music or B-roll footage or, an interview with the person to match the imagery with the message. And ideally everything would be in support of the overall message with no extraneous elements, no unnecessary footage. And in that way, it combines visual storytelling, like selecting the right music, actual narration. It's almost a multimedia story. It packs the punch of all these different elements. So it's interesting to try and weave all those together in my experience.
On the business perspective, when we put together the video on building community through the arts, that process was really nice because I had a vision that was came more from advocacy for the arts. So presenting it to the three of you and then watching it develop and go through the process and how everyone sort of bought into the intention of the story. It was like this cycle of liking the story, buying into the story, becoming the storyteller. But that same process is what you hope when you tell your story in more of a professional sense. You hope that process happens. That's what we're talking about, the older woman listening to my Nana's story and saying, this is my story. It's the same thing, the art of persuasion, I guess. But it was really interesting, that process, and bringing in a local artist because we were advocating for local artistry, so we brought one in to be part of the process, to take all of our strengths as storytellers and to put them to this place for this vision that I had when I was sitting home on my couch saying, I think we need to tell this story. Well, I have a frog story. My son Jode loved frogs when he was little, and he used to bring them in and fill the bathtub and put the frogs in and bring stones in. And of course, as his mom, I was like, no, you can't do that. So oftentimes I would be doing the laundry and I would find, yes, dead frogs, because he started taking, he would take stones and grass and everything that the froggy needed for its froggy environment, and he would stick it in his little pocket and he'd put the frog in with it.
Oh, no.
And he'd carry the frog around, yes, but the laundry would always win. The frog never won through the laundry cycle.
Yeah, I think every business has a story to tell. There's a good quote that's thousands of years, marketing messages come and go, but stories stay. So if you can tell a compelling story, it will stay with people, it'll be effective. Yeah, storytelling has become in the forefront of business practice as well as, especially for creative people. Persuasion is the currency of business communication. All right, you got it. Yeah.
Stories of frogs. See, that was a good subject. You never know.
I know, right?
Everyone has a frog story.
Yeah. Moral of the story, everyone has a frog story.
story.